All right, hey, good morning, folks. Quick morning update here on Major Hurricane Ida. Now, just a couple hours from landfall in Southeast Louisiana. I want to push a quick morning update in a video format. What we've seen overnight tonight has been, and this morning has been, an incredible intensification burst by Ida. And unfortunately, every fear of this storm has been realized, and this thing is going to join the All-Timers Club, especially for Louisiana, and if not in U.S. hurricane history, as we witness what is a top end category 4 as we know right now, continually being surveyed. It might be a category 5 where it's on the verge of. That's how powerful the storm is this morning. So if you're following from last night, we had it into category 3 territory. It was coming up quickly, and we expected a rapid intensification overnight, but Ida essentially just blew past most of the bounds we have for these things and what we would generally expect for rapid intensification, and just blew up over that patch of warm water we talked about for days in the central Gulf of Mexico, that loop current. She hit that, and from about 1 o'clock this morning onward, the pressure has been in a complete free fall, falling at about 4 to 6 millibars per hour, which is up there with some of the greatest, fastest intensifying storms we've seen, like your Marias and Wilmas and Ritas and things like that. So Ida right now knocking on the door of Category 5 intensity. This is the same thing with Laura last year. Whether it's a 4, whether it's a 5, it does not matter. You're touching a 500 or a 550-degree stove. It's going to burn. It's going to hurt. It's going to be bad. But we'll go ahead and show you the latest this morning. Infrared satellite presentation is just it's classic textbook hurricane. It's a pretty big storm. It's not gigantic, but it is a big storm. It has gotten bigger, and that core of central dense is very, very violent. All the classic signs you see: great outflow to the south, exhausting the storm. That buzz saw kind of like saw blade look to it. The central overcast has those gravity waves emitting from the center, and those deep convective cloud tops continue to swirl around that eye very, very compactly, and the storm is impressive. New Orleans radar this morning, one of the things we will notice is our first rain band's already well into shore, already over Lake Pontchartrain and moving into parts of, off to the west towards that more central eastern Louisiana region. A lot of these thunderstorms out in the head, these little discrete supercells can produce produce tornadoes. A tornado watch is up from the Storm Prediction Center. Looking closer down to where Ida's eye is, you can see the eye clear view, New Orleans radar, great eye wall structure all around it. And you see that kind of ragged misshapenness to the eye. Those are mesovortices. Those are hyper violent tornado like features rotating inside that eye. We see them in storms like Harvey, Michael, Andrew are all common examples of this. This is a hyper violent tornadic like structure inside the eye, and where this comes ashore, the damage is going to be catastrophic for probably about 10 or 15 miles on either side of where the eye comes ashore, and big devastating damage occurring well away from that. Hurricane Center's 5 a.m. forecast, no changes really. It is leaning to the right side of the forecast track from what we talked about yesterday. I'm going to go back to the radar. This is Vermilion Bay over here, Grand Isle over here, so that was kind of been the goalpost the whole time. And for a while, the track had pretty much been right through there towards Morgan City, which I think is somewhere in this region. And the hurricane does appear to be on a bit of a right edge of the track. It's still well within the forecast cone, and this is why we harp so hard on the forecast cone being, hey, this thing can track anywhere inside these goalposts. So again, Vermilion Bay was the western goalpost, and Grand Isle was the eastern goalpost, and it's going to track on the eastern side of those goalposts. And what that really means this morning is that New Orleans Metro is going to get the worst of the storm that it can possibly get. The Ida is going to move in right about Grand Isle, and it's going to turn and move northward from there, and it's going to keep New Orleans in that right front quadrant. It's going to keep it in the most heavy flooding rain, and it's going to increase the storm surge threat more than it already was from the intensity and from this, and again, potentially a Category 5 hurricane or a top end Category 4 hurricane about to make landfall here in a couple hours. Hurricane Center's latest update. So again, this is the 5-minute advisory. There was 140-mile-an-hour wind still then. Hurricane hunters have been flying constantly. They're finding higher winds. Right now, the latest estimate is at 150 miles an hour, and these hourly updates are doing with that central pressure falling down to 935 millibars. That is very, very deep, especially for a storm of this size. And it's no wonder the winds are so strong. Aircraft have been flying the storm almost all night, finding exactly what you would expect. This is where we're not sure about the Category 4 to 5 thing. We'll let you know on that. The latest pass did show SFMR winds of 140 knots, which would confirmed Category 5 because that's 160 miles an hour, but they are also flagged as suspect, and SFMR becomes less reliable when you have very, very intense hurricanes. You have to kind of rely more on flight level wind mix down calculations. That peaked at about 150 knots, and that wouldn't likely calculate out to 160, which is what you have to get for Category 5, but it's really close. And the next pass could just as easily find stronger winds. There's always an undersampling factor. With this kind of storm and the central pressure in the 930s, if that falls any further, this is going to be a Category 5. But again, it's just for record keeping. It's just a horrible time, and no one on that ground is going to be able to tell the difference in 150 and 160. It's going to be bad. Again, nothing coming to save us at the last minute. Water vapor satellite imagery shows beautiful canopy, no shear, no dry air. Nothing is coming to save us. The only thing we can hope for is that Ida is going to quickly run out of warm water in the last 2 or 3 hours before landfall. This water is plenty warm, but it's also very shallow, and the hurricane can begin to upwell that. Maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. Again, at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to slow down. This looks like Michael coming ashore in 2018. This looks like Harvey coming ashore. This looks like Laura coming ashore. I mean, this looks like some of the all-timers. I don't think anything's going to change at this point. This thing is going to be it's going to be bad. Quickly recapping the impact: storm surge at least 16 feet. This could be closer to 20 now. Now we're so far up and above what we were even thinking earlier yesterday. 12-foot storm surge, at least coming from the Bay of St. Louis, the mouth of the Mississippi River. This is going to push directly on eastern New Orleans and all those levees that protect the east side of the city. It's going to be a hell of a test. I believe they're up to 16 feet, so hopefully this is enough, but it's going to be close. This is going to be a disgusting, gigantic storm surge, and this is going to exacerbate a serious flooding threat because now, again, that corridor of heaviest rains have shifted towards New Orleans. You're talking about stamped totals in the Weather Prediction Center of 13 to 15 inches over a foot. And like I've told you guys 100 times with tropical storms, if you see a number and you live there, that's your number. Let's say you live in New Orleans and your number is stamped at 15 to 20 inches. You have to double that to get the maximum amount of rain expected. You could get double what you see on this map. This is a broad brush best guess. Get up to double. We're talking feet of rain, like 2+ feet of rain. So that's going to compound on top of that 10 to 15-foot storm surge pushing at the gates. The flooding threat New Orleans is under is extreme. It is extreme. We have 16 years since Hurricane Katrina. Today, 16 years ago, is when Katrina hit. There's been numerous upgrades in the city since then. We got to hope it's enough because this is a flooding threat, and this is a threat that they have not seen since then. And this will be the test since then of, did you do enough to protect for the most extreme circumstances? This is about as bad as it can get for New Orleans. A Category 5 hitting just to the south and to the west of the city is worst case scenario. Everyone there needs to be under the expectation that a catastrophic flooding event could still occur, even with those upgrades, even with the changes. Let's hope and pray for that not happening. But the threat there this morning is incredible. So keep an eye on that and understand that the threat there is as high and extreme as it can possibly get for the most part. Let's go ahead and look at wind gusts to come. European model had the best guess on this. Now, with that slightly eastward jog, winds over 100 miles an hour, very likely New Orleans as well. This is something they largely escaped in Katrina, where the winds weren't quite as extreme because they were on the back side of the storm, so the winds were coming down. But this can produce some of the strongest winds the city has virtually ever seen, and wind gusts down by the coast can be extraordinary. And again, those mesovortices dancing around the eye wall, you could have wind gusts 150, 160, 170 miles an hour. I mean, you're talking about tornado-like damage that could just be pretty much, at the top end of what you could see in a hurricane, period. So you see 150, you see 130, it's tomato. I mean, at this point, it's going to be extreme winds at the coast, and along with a 15 to 20 foot storm surge. Not good news. And also, tornado watch in effect. Again, the risk right now extends all the way out to the Florida Panhandle. These early feeder bands that move on shore. As these bands rotate on, they have to slow down because of the friction of the land. They turn. The low level winds turn a little bit, but your upper level winds are still kind of like this. You create a shearing factor in the atmosphere, and a lot of these will spin up brief tornadoes. They can be decently strong, but they also are typically fast moving and short lived, so they have limited warning. So you got to be ready with your phone by you, multiple ways to get alerts. A lot of these see these like popcorn sort of discrete supercells running out ahead. A lot of these will produce tornadoes, and also in these fatter feeder bands out ahead. and then more of these bands will rotate on shore as the morning goes on. Landfall expected probably sometime around noon, maybe just a bit before that. So Ida is on final approach. This thing is a violent monster. It is everything we feared it would be. The only thing we can hope for and take solace in is it was well forecast. It was warned as early as we could possibly warn it. The track hardly ever shifted. It was always supposed to be strong. I told y'all days ago the sky's the limit for the storm. Well, here we are in the sky. So I hope everyone in New Orleans and the rest of the area is ready for a storm that is going to define a generation and is going to change the way of life there for days, weeks, months, and even years to come. So we watch and we wait at this point. It's all we can do. So if you know anyone in this region, they've got to stay safe. They've got to get away from the water, get to the highest point of the building they're in, get away from windows, stay in corridors, stay in hallways, bathrooms. You know, sometimes if you're really close to that coast and you're in those hyper violent winds, get a mattress, get a helmet, get anything you can do to try to protect yourself and ride it out, hunker down. That's it. This is the forecast part's over. So that's what I got for you guys this morning. We will check in probably later this evening and see what the totals look like and see how it's going. Until then, stay safe. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.